for the younger generation and the Gen Z and all what we talk about. So that's the culture one can create in the organization, where there's a discussion and why. And often we talk about work-life and work-life balance. At least the new generation, for them, work and life, it's for me, or maybe the era I come from, I guess, it was work and now it's life. I'm having a good time now. But for the younger generation, they need to have meaningful work as well. They need to enjoy their work as well, and they need to contribute. So I think those kind of things are there, and if that culture is there, it reduces stress, increases dialogue, and these kind of things. That's my view.
Good, Nitin. You opened a different topic about the new generation and their expectations and demands. So, Ashish, I'm sure many of us go through this teenage boys or girls, at home as well as the new generation office. So if you look at for the new generation coming in today, what is relevant for them is the freedom of choice, okay? And they want a freedom of choice of what they do, whom they do for, when to do it, etc., and not like it was 10 years or 20 years before. And I'm also alluding to the point which Ram said earlier, that in any organization you may end up with 3 to 4 generations of people. And we tend to make a policy which is trying to cover everybody. But what we see today, the youngsters, they want to be more of entrepreneurs. They're willing to take the risk, unlike it was one generation before. They're willing to be part of the gig economy, doing multiple jobs. They're very clear on their choices of personal time, what they want to do. They also have their own view on well-being and being conscious about the environment in a very different way. So, Ashish, do you think what we do today would be relevant tomorrow to some extent, and do we need to do something today to meet the tomorrow in a far meaningful way?
Good question, Santosh. Let me share with you that I belong to a company which is again 130-year-old, the group. My own company has startup power is 104-year-old. Now, being in that company, you have people who are actually working on the third generation. I myself has been, actually before this company, I was working in an American company, and I think within 3 days of the day I joined Tata Group, someone come and said, my father was here, his father was also there, and my son, this is his resume. And I looked at him, I said, what the heck is going on here? Something is wrong. But it takes time to understand why that generation was doing what it is. But the biggest challenge we have is that today 70% of our employees, now we are a century-old company having employees who are not there even in 30s, majority of them. The biggest challenge we have is, are we understanding them, or we are forcing them something because we feel that has worked for us, and that has worked to survive for 104 years. I'll give you a small example. My HR came and said, this is the car policy. It has worked wonderfully well. We are twitching it across. I asked them a question. Are they looking for a car nowadays? It has changed. We have the best of the car policy, which has become redundant now because most of them don't intend to own a car right now. The next generation has very different ideas about success, work, and a culture. You asked about a culture. I think the biggest challenge we are facing is that we define the culture and we want them to fit into it. We are not understanding what exactly is in their mind. If 70% of your workforce is having a particular mindset, then it is better that we adapt to it rather than they adapting to us, because like you rightly said, they are the future out there. So the challenges which we were facing is this century-old legacy, which has worked very well for us, but how to change it for this particular environment, which is very, very different right now. They have a different parameters for even success. Leave aside anything else. What we say is a generation away. And most of us doesn't behave like fathers. And even as a father, I can confide to you, I have a teenage girl who's studying in US. I am, I may be a CEO, but I failed every day out here. I get 2 out of 10 every day from her. Even my KPIs are very successful in my company. You're doing very well, huh? I still feel that I have a chance there. So that is where I stand. I think as an organization, we have to accept the fact that this is a change. what has worked for me is not going to work now on. That's a paramount factor. Permanent factor is whatever has worked for me, which has taken me here, and I believe this is the mode of success, is absolutely not going to work here. I need to adapt towards them. I need to stop wearing a tie and must have to come, and sometimes I do come, to the horror of my wife who says, what is going on here? What is this dress to go to office? I said, hold on, I am going with a very different people. So unless I change myself and that culture in the organization change, it's not going to happen. I have to accept this fact that they are absolutely different than me. They are not just different, they are very different. The other thing which we are facing today is that it's not one culture. We have, you take engineers, I'm a proud engineer out there. Some of them have come from hinterland. They have a very different background from which they are coming. We face challenges there too. How do they react to a metro? How do they react to the girls around them? How do they react to various other things when they reach to metro? So we have a very heterogeneous culture too. India is very complex. It's not like one country, one small European country where we can work and they generally have one culture. We have complexities even within us. Where we come from, what we have done in our life, our family background, the composition of the family, nuclear, all these complexities are there, and then we bring that complexities to our organizations too. Unless I recognize those complexities and then look at that, where do I stand? Which are the commonalities, and let me work towards it, I am not going to be successful. Believe me, it's a work in progress for me. Every day, every week, I work on this. I make it as a learning process. What has worked for us in pandemic is not working for us now. It's a fact of life too. So you're very right. The future, in my view, is to absolutely recognize that this is the brand which is coming. I have a responsibility to keep the legacy on. And on certain parameters, if you are very clear to them, ethics, your values, and certain performance levels, and then you give them the space, I think that is very important for them. Their definition of work-life balance is very different. Their definition of space also is very different. And unless I recognize them and work towards it and provide them that environment, I cannot do it. But the biggest challenge is that we think that this has worked, now it will be there for next 5 years. It is not happening. So after every 1 year or every 6 months, we are shifting ourselves to some new ideas. Some of them are working. Some of them are still work in progress. Some of them are failing. And that's a learning process.
Thank you, Ashish. And Sarthak, taking forward from about the new generation, and you look at them, where they're building relationships today over a social media more than a physical connect, right? You have a highly distributed workforce. You have people who are comfortable working with shorts and t-shirts than the way we dress up and come in these days. Okay, what challenges do you see in ensuring the way you are envisaging and well-being to be adhered to, or well-being to be implemented across, where you don't even end up seeing these employees in office often, right? They're where they are, in a distributed mode. What do you think we can do better in such an environment, an evolving environment where it's a fact of life for us?
Thanks, and again, that's a great question. So I have some commonalities with some of my friends on the panel. I also have a son who's 24-year-old studying in the US, and believe me, it's always difficult to engage, right? Beyond 5 minutes. So I guess a couple of things, to your question. First is, as I said in the beginning, our world has changed drastically in the last 2-3 years. So, and that has also led many of us to look at answering some of the questions which we really don't have answers. And it's more like, I would completely agree with what Ashish is saying, is work in progress. And I think one thing which will keep us all on track would be to continuously listening to our employees, what they want to say, what they want to communicate. And I think it goes back to this whole, someone also spoke on the panel, that you need to create that culture where people feel it's a safe space to speak, because until you don't do that, you will not really hear the voice of the people and especially the younger generation. I think, as we know, they are driven by different motives, right? Their purpose is, and thankfully for a healthcare company like Johnson & Johnson, we have a purpose which is very noble about transforming people's lives. So it comes very natural for many of us, and they quickly align that. But I think the way they would deliver would be slightly different to your point. They would need more flexibility. And I think as Ashish said, we also continue to review our policies, many policies. And, very recently, we also reviewed our dress code in office. And, because we were a sort of a little a typical, company which insisted on formal attire. But now moved to that. I myself come on jeans and T-shirts to office, and I started doing that. So, obviously people saw that, okay, he's doing it, why not I? Of course, there are guardrails that it should not be torn jeans and all that stuff. So, but I guess this is just a small example of how you need to change with times. You can't be rigid, and completely agree with what previously my panel said. And especially in a virtual environment where you're not able to see your employees, I think it becomes much more difficult to establish this connect. So I think Sunita mentioned at the start that during the pandemic also, when we all were working virtually, even when you start your meeting, a simple question of how are you feeling today, and it should be very genuine. It should not be just a tick in the box exercise that I did my job as an inclusive leader. You need to really build on that and see and talk about it, and also create that comfort where the employee feels free to open up and discuss. So I would just end there, I would say.
Thank you, Sarthak. I just been reminded of the time, saying don't ask any more questions. Okay, so I'll honor that and open up to the audience for the next 5 minutes. Any questions to anybody here? Oh yeah, please, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Soumya. I head corporate affairs and HR at a public policy think tank called Takshashila Institution. My question is to understand, has the narrative shifted in a way that we are talking about it at the hiring phase and not once a person onboards? Like, are the talent actually questioning that, do you have wellness conversations and what's in it? Because otherwise it's typically driven with compensation, insurance, that kind of incentive-based conversations. One is that. Second is, in the paternity leave context, do we see that people actually avail leaves? Because my own research in the organization indicates that a lot of people feel they don't have a role to play. Especially men think that, okay, most women go to their mother's place, so a lot of that responsibility is held on the other side. So is it moving towards a Finland kind of policy where a woman gets an incentive which is higher if the spouse, that is the men, take the leave? So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Thanks.
Great. Nitin, you want to take it? You are one of the largest workforces in India.
Okay, I will try to answer your question. It's a very sort of a deep question. And so, yes, we have a large workforce. Actually, Quest has a workforce of 500,000 people. So we are one of the largest domestic private sector employers in the country. When you're talking about, first of all, when you're talking about, I just allow me to make one little comment before I try to answer your question. And that is that, India is said to have a demographic dividend. We have the youngest workforce in the world. And this will last till 2050. But the well-being of this workforce, the productivity of this workforce, how happy this workforce is very, very critical. And because, you raised issues about maternity, I'm like, well, I don't know the full macroeconomics of Finland and how does it work there. But since you must be doing this research, and you will see that the participation of women in the workforce in India is at least 10 to 15% behind the Southeast Asian countries. And one of the speakers, Mr. Mahapatra, also said that what kind of policies and processes do you have to bring the women in? He was talking about the, what kind of policies do you have for the menstruation? Do you have leave? Do you have at least work from home? Maternity, what all happens? And also, later on when hormonal changes are happening again, do you treat it just like maternity and a natural process and give that space? So from that perspective, a lot has to be done in India from a women's perspective, and we are really, really, I would say, behind in bringing the women to the workforce. That's one point I want to make. Second, an organization which has a good culture. And I mean, like, some of my colleagues can, also, panel members can also join in. Well, of course, compensation is one thing, but the organization that has a holistic culture, which looks after the well-being and, it's known to look after you, you tend to attract good talent. And that talent stays with you. And if good talent is there and it stays with you, you ultimately end up attracting more and more better people. That's how it's really working. And I'd be happy to, talk about especially that women part or something if you are, outside the forum. That's how it's really working, and that's my opinion.
Maybe if I can quickly jump in and ask. So first is, we do see some people who come for the interviews and all ask a lot of questions which go beyond compensation. Very recently, one of the person who were hiring asked me that, does your company provide CSR leaves? Because he believes in giving back to community a lot. And we do have that program where we encourage employees to take leaves and do something good for the community collectively or individually. So this is a good trend which I'm seeing, that people are really looking beyond the pay package. And second question on parental leave policy, I mean, we extend it to both the husband as well as the wife, and we actually encourage both of them to take it. And the trend which I'm seeing in my organization is that more and more men are coming forward and claiming it, and posting pictures of how that experience has been. And that's really setting a good trend in the organization, that, because in India, in our culture, unfortunately, the roles were sort of, named, right? And during the COVID also, I think everything got changed. So cooking is no longer, I think we heard from the IOC head also, that cooking is no longer the domain of women, but men also do it. So this is something which is very good, which is happening, and more and more men are coming forward and taking that leaves.
I'll just, if you allow me, your first question, it's very interesting. I have been personally thinking about it. I realized that our major workforce which is primarily graduate engineer trainees or diploma engineer trainees, our selection process itself is only on the performance of the studies. We are not actually evaluating them on other factors. It's only at the B school when we go, we look at some EQs and other factors. And since our performance, our selection process is those who have done well on that particular part, it is not right on us then to expect them to be better in other parts too. So what we are trying, and that is our 70% of the workforce. And then we have this struggle that why he's not doing this, where is the cultural difference and things like that, and why the EQ is not meeting with the IQ. I think what we are trying to do is to also give a lot of focus towards the EQ and the aptitude and the attitude part, besides the performance part. But you have to appreciate the fact that we all have grown into this system where in CBSCs or ICSCs, you are just being asked to study, and the performance evaluation is based on those questions of physics, chemistry. It has very little to do with the life. And that's our challenge today. So all have grown onto that. They have succeeded onto it. We also select them on the same basis. Then we expect them to talk about and understand better things than where they have been actually meritorious at that particular time. We are struggling. We might have to do something different out there. We're trying to see EQ, but it's a very relevant challenge which we all have at this stage.
Sure. We got a question on the back. The lady.
Thank you so much. Am I audible there?
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, perfect. So this question is to the entire panel. Thank you so much. My name is Nidhi, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Silver Talkies. In fact, the things that you're talking about here today, the well-being, we actually focus on the well-being of older adults. And I think some of the points that you raised, Nitin just spoke about the demographic dividend, right? And I think the other dimension of that is that India is also aging very rapidly, and we would have as many older adults, in fact, outnumbering the kids below 15, right? I think one of the points which I did not hear really being discussed are the employee benefit programs being extended heavily to look at the aging parents also, because caregiving and taking care of elderly parents, specifically now that we have nuclear families and longevity, is one of the key things now. Is that something which is being actively looked at? Because I have been trying to reach out to corporates and trying to put a spotlight on this. And I have been hearing a big no. So I would like to hear from the panel. Thank you.
Ram?
I think I'm not sure the specific question that you're asking in terms of whether it's our benefits that you're referring to or in terms of other aspects of what we would allow or create that will support a family member, an aging family member. So one of the things I mentioned earlier is we extended the benefits not just to the direct parents of the employee, but also their in-laws, for example. So because our recognition is exactly what you're saying is, we can't presuppose who they're taking care of in their house or who's staying with them, who needs to be covered. Otherwise, you leave out somebody whom you didn't intend to leave out. That's one aspect to it. The other aspect to it is flexibility of work in the sense of if they have a personal situation that they need to handle, whether they need to take time off or they need to be able to handle it within their work ambit so that they have flexibility. They don't have to, for example, like I said, we leave it to the employees to decide if they want to come to work to the office on a regular basis, or they choose to work completely from home, because they may have other aspects to their life that we may not be aware of. So we leave it up to them. So we actually took them, we would see them standing outside the office or standing in the lobby. So we actually started bringing them into the office and having a coffee session with them where we tell them about the company, not just about the work that we do, we tell them that also, where their children are coming in, and what are the other things that we do, in terms of helping them develop as individuals. The effect of that we found was that the parents started getting a lot more comfortable in reaching out sometimes. And we created an environment where we help the family come into as part of our culture and coming into the organization. And now we do it virtually, right, on the day we onboard. It's very interesting. Because on Zoom, when I do this session for the parents, I see a multi-generational family sitting there and watching this, right? We see the grandparents, the uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces, they all join the session. And we have it becomes a very interesting family way of engaging. So anyway, like I said, we are trying some of these things out. How much of that will stick? And I don't know if that specifically answered the question that you asked.
No, I will just add that we have actually realized that appreciating their contribution, especially the family, the parents. Now, in our case, whenever there is a promotion, I personally write a letter or send them a card for their contribution along with a flower or a chocolate on it. Take my word, that has paid us much more dividend than whatever we do in the office in appreciating them. That's the one part. But I'm also struggling with another part today, which we are trying to do as elder in the organization, to make people understand that Pitaji and Mataji are more important than 5G. That's a big challenge. And we all are also trying to contribute out there.
So if I can just take 1 minute and Shravani. Two quick comments. This was a fascinating discussion. Thank you very much. It's not every day we get a panel of chief executive officers in front of us, so I do want to make two quick comments only. Nitin, to pick up on your demographic dividend, the point is that everybody here should realize that demographic dividend of India is going to very quickly turn into a demographic disaster unless we take care of the health of the employees and tackle non-communicable diseases and mental illness. So that is one point. I think Nandan Nilekani first said this word, demographic disaster. So I did want to bring that up. The other is, children today, I was struck by this. 10-year-old children, 1 in 3 10-year-old children in India have high BP. Okay? Just think about it. 35%, 10 to 12-year-olds have high blood pressure. So imagine in 10 years, they're going to be your employees. And they're going to be sicker than everybody else. So we have a collective responsibility, not just for our employees and our staff, but also for the communities, for the children, because we will suffer, the companies will suffer, the country will suffer. I just wanted to say that. It's shocking that so many of us have high BP.
Thank you. I know there are 3-4 hands. We are short of time. We are here during the break. We can take it. One last question. That gentleman I promised behind. Sorry. He raised his hand first.
There?
Yeah.
Good morning. I am Dr. Divyang Shah, Chief Medical Officer of Larsen & Toubro. Nice to see the CEO talking of the medical, and that gives the perspective. Mostly the board meetings have the agenda of productivity and performance. Lately started the safety performance safety index. What do you think when the employee or organization happiness index or wellness index or health index will be the main agenda of all the board meetings?
Yeah, maybe if I can give it a try. So look, I think wellness, criteria is becoming more and more important. So maybe it may not officially reflect in the minutes of the board, but there are companies which are giving it a very good attention. And many of us, have this very frequent employee surveys, where we measure the pulse of the employees, what they want to communicate, how's the engagement scores, and also, I'm sure, all of you will agree, all of us have systems and ways of checking that pulse, which is so very important to continue to deliver the high performance. And
so I think the employee pulse discussion comes in the board meeting. I think it does come sort of on a regular basis, So I would like to at least say that,
Great.
My view, you don't need it as an agenda. I think there is something which an organization has to do if they have to progress. Even if you take the progress without these things which you mentioned, it's not possible to. So it's by far the most important thing which will be reflected in the other parameters which the organization do per se.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all the panelists for the great participation. Some of the questions were not so easy and direct, but all of you were completely into it from your heart, and really appreciate the time taken and your candid answers. Thank you very much to all of you.
Request Ms. Srabani, Head of Healthy Workplaces Program, Arogya World, to please come on stage and honor the panelists with our small token of gratitude. Please put your hands together for Ms. Srabani on stage. Thank you, sir. All right, thank you very much to all our esteemed panelists and for Mr. Santosh for moderating the session so well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a short tea coffee break. And yes, you all can network and have your tea coffee. We will reconvene back in 10 minutes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's 11:55 a.m. We'll reconvene back sharp at 12:05 p.m. Thank you and have a good time.
Hi, Nalini. Nalini, could you please come here at the console? Console on the right side of yours. Okay. We would be projecting your presentation.
Okay, so I won't be able to see the slides. I have to see them on my own computer. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Check. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we had a great 15 minutes break for tea, coffee, and networking. And I'm super excited to get back to the packed agenda of today's wonderful program, Healthy Workplaces, Conference and Awards 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite you all back to the floor? And we're all set to start our next session. Ladies and gentlemen, giving you an invitation call. Can we all gather back inside the hall, please? Thank you. Yes. Check, check. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there at the tea coffee counter, can I request you to please gather back inside the hall? I am super excited to look forward to the next agenda of our Healthy Workplace Conference. So can I have you all back inside the hall, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, a last call to the people still at the coffee tea counter. We are now starting the next agenda of our today's program. So request you all, ladies and gentlemen, in the last rows to please settle down. Thank you. All right, welcome back everyone. Hope you could catch up with your favorite speakers and engaged in some very interesting networking conversations, as much as you could in that short break. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Mr. Wolf Christen, co-founder and co-director, Global Center for Healthy Workplaces, to provide his expert insights on the topic, building an ecosystem around holistic well-being. Mr. Kristen hosts the Global Healthy Workplace Awards each year and certifies enterprises as healthy workplaces. A few words about Mr. Wolf Kristen. He is a social entrepreneur and founder of international health consulting based in Hamburg, Germany, and Tucson, Arizona. His consulting portfolio is truly global. With this, ladies and gentlemen, give a huge round of applause for Mr. Wolf Kristen, who is joining us online through a Zoom call. He's not here amongst us, but he's here with us virtually. A very warm welcome, Mr. Wolf Kristen. Nice to have you here.
Oh, do you want to be? Okay. I can't see or hear anybody, but can you hear me now? It's good? All right. Okay. So welcome, everybody, if you can see me. It is an honor to present tonight to Bangalore. I wish I could be there. I'm in Tucson, Arizona. It's still Thursday here, Thursday night. And yeah, again, I wish I was going to be there to meet with you and have some discussions. So hopefully next year, come to India as travel again is becoming easier. So dear dignitaries and conference delegates, organizers, and colleagues and friends, I'd like to talk today a little bit about holistic well-being and how important it is really on a global scale to achieve positive health outcomes and reduce non-communicable disease. So let me start first by saying a big thank you to Arogya World, not just for inviting me tonight, but Arogya has been a great partner over the years to the Global Center for Healthy Workplaces and have really invited some of your award winners to our global program. And I'm sure some of you are in the audience. So thank you so much for that. And I hope we can continue our fruitful partnership for the future. So let me start and give you a little bit of an overview what's kind of going on globally. And I know quite a few of you actually work globally too, so this will not be new to you. So first of all, we're still dealing with work-related diseases and injuries. It sometimes gets lost these days, but it's responsible for a large number of deaths, as you can see by this number from the ILO and WHO. However, the last few years have really brought other issues to the forefront. They've been around for a long time, but especially mental health or mental illness, if you will, has become a huge issue during COVID, especially. And this is really causing a problem for employees, of course, because they have the illness, but of course also to employers. Having employers productive and the cost relation is a really major problem on the employer side. So the quality of working environment is key. It's very important. And I think only 21% of employees are truly engaged in their work. Not even a quarter of employees, just imagine. So hopefully those numbers are higher within your companies, but that's kind of an overall global number as we have there. And then there have been a few studies out there. I've been involved in some. This latest one is from Aon, that companies were asked, globally, are you offering any well-being initiative? So 87% seems like a pretty large number, but if you ask about a strategy, the number goes down to 55. So hopefully you can see these slides. Slide 3, please. Sorry, slide 3, I supposed to say. So slide 3 shows you, this is from the data from the United States, and it's really interesting, I think, because it just drives home the point that I'm trying to make. The national study, companies were asked, you see the different sizes here, number of employees, do you offer any type of health promotion program, or if you will, any type of wellness program? And the number was about half, a little less than half, 46%. The larger companies have higher numbers, the smaller one, lower numbers. That's pretty clear. Slide 4. If they were asked, well, do you offer a comprehensive health promotion program? And I don't know if you can see the fine print here, but comprehensive was defined by, very quickly, health education, links related to employer services, supportive physical and social environment for health improvement, integration of health promotion into the organizational culture, and employee screenings with adequate treatment and follow-up. That was their definition. The point I'm trying to make is that the number really quickly goes down. Only about 12% now say they are offering a comprehensive health promotion program. So that's really, I think, our challenge. I would, almost willing to bet that that number is maybe even lower, but that similar trend you can see in other countries. That any kind of program, numbers are higher than comprehensive programs. So that's our challenge that we're faced with. Slide 5, please. I think you all will be familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. My point here is that there's a number of drivers now existing which are kind of pushing companies or suggesting that employers to invest in the health of their employees. So this is a very overarching global grand goals from the UN, and it's you can see there's a number of areas here which directly actually relate to health or workplace health. And number 3 and number 8 are the most obvious ones, but some of the others as well. That's one driver. Slide 6, please. The World Health Organization, you probably will have seen this if you follow WHO and the mental health at work. It recently came out with these guidelines, mental health at work. So the World Health Organization, just like the Healthy Workplace Framework, which I will briefly introduce to you in a few minutes, they continue to bring out solid evidence and good guidance, technical reports on mental health, not only mental health, but health at work. So that's another one which I would follow in this field. Slide 7. This one is a really interesting one, and I hope you can see some of these company names on the right. So this came out. This is a publication from an investor. It's an investment fund, like a pension fund, and they actually made the effort to analyze companies on their mental health programs. It's kind of like a mental health benchmark. And I won't go into the details of the criteria, but I highly recommend you taking a look at this. The fact that this is being published and the company names are being published in different tiers, I think is very interesting, because it's almost like, quote unquote, shaming companies if they're not doing that well. But although I think those companies, all of those that participate in this, probably are a little further ahead than the thousands and millions of ones which don't. But these are mostly big ones, as you can see here, and it's really interesting. I think that investors are now taking a close look, in this case, mental health, but I think health as a whole, kind of under the ESG umbrella. So that's another big driver we are all facing. Slide 8, please. This I just recently came across. I thought it was really interesting. You may know, I don't know how popular or how known Indeed is in India. Maybe it's a job site. It's very big in the US. I know it's global, but I don't know how big it is in India. But it's a job site where you can send your resume or as an employer offer jobs. They now have a work happiness score. They're changing it to workplace work well-being index. They score companies based on survey data of employees. On these factors, so like achievement, flexibility, learning, support, inclusion, purpose, and so on. Very interesting, I think. Well, this is public data. Job applicants, job seekers see this. Of course, you won't have every company presented there, and they may not all have this data, but quite a few, and it's growing, so that they can decide, well, am I really going to seek a job at a company which has a very low work well-being score? Yeah, maybe not. So I think that's another big driver which is growing, and with a company like Indeed doing this. Let's go to the next slide, slide 9 that we're on now. The good news is that we have quite a bit of data in terms of the effectiveness of workplace well-being, workplace wellness. A lot of that research comes out of the United States, but not only. There's other good research as well, which shows the effectiveness. And then the question is, well, what kind of program delivers those results? And it gets a little bit more differentiated or nuanced. You can't just say any program will prove or show financial impact. It doesn't. It really depends on what you do, how long you do it. So, but there have been quite a few studies on working on those. Or concluding, finding those factors which produce those results that you want. This graph here, I just wanted to explain it so you understand it. There's a study, it's a correlational study, I should mention. They looked at the stock market index over, I can't even see here, but probably like 10, 15 years, the S&P 500 in the United States, and then they tracked the stock market performance of companies who have won, not our global award, but a US-based health achievement award. So they had programs which were pretty mature in health, and it's blue line. So they outperformed the markets by quite a bit, which was, again, the question is what comes first, the company with a successful business setup or the employee health, but it doesn't really matter. But there is a correlation. I think that's the key. That's what you need to remember on this one. There's a few studies actually on this correlation. Very interesting. Let's go to slide 10. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about our work and what we do with regard to comprehensive well-being. So the Global Center for Healthy Workplaces has been running a global awards program for 10 years. It's really the only truly global award. It's directly aligned with the World Health Organization Healthy Workplace model, which was developed about 10 years ago. And I was part of the expanded expert group, and I was very fortunate, and then just try to find a way to make this more known across the globe. And that's when we started the program, the awards program, so it would get out there and companies actually apply and directly align. And some of you know the process very well. I won't go into the details, but I think we're around 350, 360 applications from really all over the world, 60 plus countries, Asia, Africa. We just had our first African winner, but I'll talk about it in a second. South America, Europe, North America. So it's truly global. It's always exciting to see those companies apply from all over the world. So we have some great data, good practice data from these companies and countries. Let's go to slide 11. So this is the model. Hopefully most of you, or maybe all of you, have seen it, and I won't go into too much detail, but I just wanted to point out a few things because it's important, I think. You can tell right away it's fairly easy to read, I think, but it's still complex if you look at the area. So you have your physical work environment. A lot of the health and safety goes into that. Psychosocial work environment. How is your work organized? How relationship with colleagues, leaders, leadership behaviors, workplace culture, huge. Then on the right side, your personal health. Your resources, some of your more traditional wellness programs, your health screenings, those reducing health risks, those kind of things. And then, what role does the enterprise play in the community with regard to health? Do they offer programs to well, first of all, maybe families, dependents, and then to the expanded community, screenings or educational activities, those kinds of things. And I know a number of Indian companies were really good at that, and that came through the application. So that's great. That's a really big plus. And then in the center, or the outside center, I would say, where they have the blue boxes, that's a continuous improvement cycle. You will recognize that. So it's really important. I think we all know that to assess, to measure, and to follow up and adjust your program. And that's sometimes still, I think, an area of improvement in terms of actually showing trends, outcomes, indicators. What have you achieved? How do you know you were successful? You may have offered all these programs, a long list. Are they successful? Do you know if they're successful? Are they improving the health of the employees? Are they improving the health of those employees which are hard to get to, which are hard to reach? Because sometimes you only reach the healthy ones anyway. That's a big challenge, as you will know. And then, of course, in the center, the ethics is always really important. It goes back to ethics and values. And around that, you need to get very, important, need to get your leadership involved, get them engaged, have them support it visibly. And then, of course, your employees. You need them involved, not just as a quote unquote subjects or filling out surveys. They need to be involved in the program development as well. So that's really key, very important. So here you see some of our winners. There's a whole lot more companies who actually participate, as I said, and we have finalists as well. We only have one winner, so it's always tough. As you can see here from India, Indian Oil and Hero Motor Corp, and so great job. Unilever, Dr. Rajgopal played a huge role with that as well as being the corporate medical director. So there's definitely, and there's a few more. We just had Godrej Industries this year with a really excellent application, very close finalists. So that I'm really again thankful for the participation, and every year those applications are very solid, very strong. And as you can see, even with the winners, they're from all over the place. Some of the multinationals you will recognize right away. They're just brand names. And then if you go to the smaller enterprises you may have never heard of, also really interesting. And this year, the African HRC, the Health Research Center, Population and Health Research Center in Kenya, they won the award. So really happy that we had, finally enough from another continent, and this being Africa, winning the award for medium size. They were about 200 people, I think. So that was a good one too. And then let's go to slide 13. Just as a summary, and this is my last slide. These are, it's never easy to summarize it, right? There's so many good elements in there, and they're all a little bit different based on the culture and the industry, the country. They're never the same, and they shouldn't be, that's for sure. But there are some common elements which come through, and they're definitely a reflection of the healthy workplace model. But in this case, just a couple of pointers here. So well-being or wellness becomes a business strategy, right? It's part of the business strategy. It's in the business process. You have KPIs, you have leadership strategizing around it. It's really like any other business area, and that's not always easy to achieve. I know that, especially at the beginning. So as I said, leadership support is so crucial to have that. But at the same time, you need to involve your line managers, right? So they really kind of communicate the program in terms of providing access to programs, allowing employees to join certain things. Their behavior as managers itself or themselves is really important. That can create major health issues, negative or positive, right? So line managers sometimes are underestimated, I think. So they need to be involved and trained as well in the relevant areas. So workers actively be involved. I mentioned it a few times. There's a number of ways to do that. Some companies have ambassador programs, meaning involving workers as kind of conduits or communication partners. I think that's bringing the programs to the rest of the company. I think purpose has become a huge issue. I'm sure it's also in India that employees look for a purpose in their work as well. They ask more questions rather than just a job and nice money. It's really about what you do. I think that's especially the younger generations are looking for that. Inclusiveness has become a huge one. Around that, of course, they're